Hi, everyone. I'm Ruben Gomez, your seasonal movement podcast host. We have Jay. She is the founder of Ocean's Melody Align, where she offers Hono Hono traditional Maori energy work alongside intuitive guidance, body-based practices, and compassionate space holding for both people and animals. She is the facilitator of presence and energy who waves together ancient wisdom, intuitive touch, and embodied awareness, supporting others to release tension, meet their truth, and reconnect with their natural rhythm of being. With roots in yoga, trauma-informed movement, and deep spiritual exploration, Janina Jay brings um, grounded yet soulful way of working, bringing culture and creating space where people feel safe, seen, and nourished from the inside out. Help me welcome Jay. Thank you so much for being here, Jay. I can't wait for this episode. We already had a short conversation. It took a lot longer because we have so much to share, and I can't wait for you guys to absorb everything we're going to be downloading in this episode. How are you, Jay?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Well, thank you to you for making it. I know that you are in New Zealand, and even though where I am in the Midwest is around 12 o'clock, where you are is 5:30 in the morning. So the time difference, me being in the northern hemisphere, you being on the southern hemisphere brings like a vibrancy to what we're doing here because it's all about the contrast. I want to start by asking you a quick question about your background. So you're from Germany and then you travel the world and now you're in New Zealand. If you can please just give us a little debrief of those adventures that you went through to finally settle in New Zealand, I would love to have a little bit of background on that.
Well, it has been a hell of a ride. I've always had that feeling of wanting to go traveling when I was really young. And then with 19, different synchronicities aligned, I made it happen and started to travel in Australia for a couple of years and met different people, different countries. I always wanted to find more out about myself, who I am. And at the start, obviously, you get a bit carried away with different cultures, countries, like experiencing everything. And then I was literally led by spirit to different countries, to different places. Um, Thailand, Southeast Asia, Fiji, Bali, New Zealand in the end. And as soon as I arrived in New Zealand, it was kind of like I arrived home. My soul arrived home. It had a place where it was always longing for.
Hmm. So I believe in our conversation, it came up that perhaps the energy of New Zealand, what was that really make you feel at home once you arrive in New Zealand? Because a lot of times we're talking about energy and there's like so many definitions. But what was it? Like, what was the thing that made you feel seen and welcome in that place?
It was the nature in itself. Wherever you go in New Zealand, the landscapes are so wide. It's so different wherever you go. It's that you can feel spirits alive very quickly. I believe I had a few past lives here in New Zealand as well, so there was that instant connection there. I arrived on a farm when I arrived in New Zealand, working on a farm as well, so doing like the typical Kiwi experience at the start, which was a bit overwhelming, but at the same time, it taught me so much about myself. Um,
So I want to get a little bit of a background because New Zealand is, it has had many people come and go.
yeah,
Now, there is tell me if I'm saying this right, Maori, the
Maori.
Maori people, the Maori culture. I'm sure that there is Western civilization there. I'm sure that there is different people that came and go, but for what I'm getting, the Maori wisdom, the Hono Hono, um, is kind of like what really got you to feel at home. Can you express a little bit of that culture and how it might be so different from the Western civilization, like the Western culture that we live in?
They are way more connected to the spirit world, the people that choose to. Like, there's still a big difference between um, we Westerners can kind of go into our day and just go about our day, do this task, that task here and there. So through Hono Hono, I've learned to even start this whole space up with a karakia, so with an opening prayer, with bringing my ancestors into this place too, bringing the Maori connections into this place as well, to protect the space, to be grounded, to be in the heart center, to just be fully present and speak from the heart as well. Um, and being guided by something that is within us but also above us. We're always connected wherever we go, but we have to choose with our intention as well to bring that into our lives.
So I want to contrast it a little bit. I am a Christian and I'm not very familiar with the Hono Hono tradition, but I do agree from my perspective, the connection from within, like the God, the spirit that we have from within above us. I also extend that to say all around us. So that perspective is something that has also influenced me a lot as I have gone through observing nature, observing social rhythms, observing what it seems to be happening on the outside, and actually bring it into relevance to what is happening on the inside as well. So I like to think of, where is really that separation, the outside, the inside, or bodies, or souls. Like, can you tell me a little bit of what was that you learned from this culture that really made it click? Because when you travel around the world, you probably saw different versions of a spirituality and being connected with nature, but it seems like it finally made sense here. And I would like to hear from you.
It is the community aspect as well. It's the support from people within the space, of holding space, of taking you for who you are, not putting any masks on, not facing you into any corners of like there's no expectations. You can really fully be yourself within these spaces. You can tap into um, like that whole journey when you find things out about yourself. We're talking about traumas, we're talking about conditioning, we're talking about um, all over everything in that context. And it is the being you, just really finding out who you are at a soul essence, at the core essence within your heart, without having to think about what other peoples may think, if they may judge you, or if it's a aspect of uh, yeah, just being you. It's again,
So I do have, sorry by interrupting, but I always find fascinating and part of what has guided me to pay attention to the seasons is that our environment deeply influences our body or emotions or thoughts. And I'm always very interested in seeing how that plays in our daily life. When we're talking about trauma, the word itself, it is a big word, but there's all sorts of levels within it. And when it comes down to daily life, the environment constantly changing makes me question if we are in a way different from one season to the other. And when we are in fact connected to nature, perhaps those differences are even more dramatic. Like we were connected with nature and we change the way that we do things in a certain way, or the timing or the intensity. And being connected with nature, can you reflect on that? Like, how have you changed from season to season, meaning before you became aligned and connect to nature? Now, the difference now, perhaps it might be even more dramatic, how a winter day looks like compared to a summer day, perhaps.
So, being from Germany, you're always kind of conditioned to push harder, to just go with whatever arises. There is no real, for me, it felt like that anyway. You just go, 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 go. One new idea, one new project, one new whatever it might be. Here in New Zealand, it is, you can have 4 seasons in one day, especially here in Christchurch, and you just slow down with it. Like every time now, when it is sunny outside, then it suddenly starts raining, and that's kind of like where it takes me into that introspection in itself of like, what is it cleansing and clearing in this moment right now? It's not just cleansing and clearing the land, but it's also cleansing and clearing something within us. Um,
Mm,
then the sunshine comes back out, and then there's that gratitude for the sunshine. There's that moment of pause as well, to take in the sunshine, to be with it, to let it refuel my energy of what has been cleansed before. So it's that giving and receiving, that working with nature, especially with
mm.
working on the farm. When I arrived in New Zealand, I had to learn the hard way how animals, environment, and humans have to work together to make it work.
I find that a very insightful truth, because when I say the word seasons, I'm honestly just kind of talking about patterns, but we're conditioned to think that by just hearing the word season, we're implicitly saying that in the winter it's cold, it's gray, and then in the summer it's sunny, it is hot. But in reality, there's always an ebb and flow. And where I live, is not as dramatic where you see the 4 seasons throughout the year, but during certain times, during certain seasonal transitions, spring and fall, it is very common to get some rain, some snow, some hot, some cold, some windy days, all like back to back. And it is kind of funny because people in the Midwest experience that as well. What I find extremely interesting is that you are reflecting on what is happening on the inside is also happening on the inside. But that is matter of perspective. Like if you are able to find the beauty of what is happening on the inside to enhance and improve what is happening on the inside, that real connection becomes very beneficial. Now, sometimes that happens 4 times in a day. And I think that that's like the beautiful gift that God has given us to experience life from different seasons, from different perspectives, in different environments. Like we might be looking at the same window, but in this case, hour through hour, it has changed. And then, in other locations, it might be season through season, it might change. So the importance of that environment transforming us, how have you seen when people have gone through that transformation, when people have arrived to you in a Western perspective and somehow they have accepted the guidance that you give them and then they connect back to nature, to themselves? Like, what is the usual transformation that people experience? Or, everybody's a little different, but I'm sure there is some patterns, and I would love to get your perspective based on your experience on that end, that transformation that happens.
That transformation that happens is, first of all, the awareness of going inwards. Not always being so focused on what is happening outside of me, but what is actually happening inside of me internally. What is happening in my body? Is there any sensations? Like our body's always speaking to us, our body's always guiding us, the same as nature. Nature's always got messages and synchronicities, and like even if there's a bird flying by, what is this bird trying to tell me? So really bringing that awareness to moving with intention, not
Mm,
getting so caught up on the past, not getting so caught up on the future, but staying in that present moment, because each present moment is teaching us something. the present moment is pretty much what is guiding us in a way forward as well. So people start to really go internally, reflecting on past experiences, how they shape their life now, how it may have even held them back from new projects, from new ideas, from things that they actually want to do. A lot of people in this world doing things in a job, or even spending time with people that they're not really connecting with because there's that fear of change. But it brings through that connection internally, it opens, it's like opening the sometimes
Veil.
it's just, yeah, and you can have like glasses over your sunglasses, so it's kind of like flipping that off and just seeing the bigger picture as well, seeing the interconnectedness of all there is. They feel a lot lighter, they feel more open to new experiences as well. If It always depends a bit on the willingness, on how far the person is willing to go. Like, I always say it's about baby steps. It's one step at a time. We don't have to have it all figured out now. It's like setting one step in front of the other. The more we step out of our comfort zone, the easier it gets to step out of our comfort zone, and we can do bigger steps over time. Um, it's uh, it's a beautiful process to witness. Like, you can see
I
how people's aura, we all have an energy field. You can see
hmm,
how their face lights up. You can see, obviously, there's a lot of tears that might be shed, or like Hono Hono works with body. The body is pretty much the guidance in that sense. So there might be a lot of tummy rumbles, burping, or yawning, which is all a matter of releasing. And you can see that in people's aura fields and people's faces after each treatment.
so I love how you use the word synchronicities, and I do believe that in order to see them, we need a little bit of guidance and training if we are not even aware that they exist. I like to talk about entrainment, which essentially means that you can have one without the other. For example, a wave. A wave has a crest, and then it also has the body, and it has the shallow part to it. The wave is the same. You can have one without the other, but the wave goes into a rhythm. It like is entrained with other waves, is entrained with the whole ocean, and I believe that it is important, as you're saying, like removing the glasses, removing the veil so we can see, because going back to your example in Germany, in the Western culture, we are just used to go, 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 go. So it's not as much as that we are either focused on the outside or on the inside. It's like we are not really focused on either or. That is my perception. I don't have a way to explain it. It's like we don't really pay attention to that synchronicity. And I think that personally, that has helped me to become more self aware of myself, to appreciate nature, to appreciate life. And within that, I believe there is a relationship with the feminine and the masculine. And perhaps the masculine is always going, 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 don't connect to your feelings or don't connect to the outside, to the inside. I would like to touch on what is your perception about that harmony between masculine and feminine, and how that has showed up through your experience of your life and your clients and the work that you do. Because I do believe that part of the seasonal movement is help people harmonize their relationship between the two.
We all have the masculine and the feminine within ourselves. And before I stepped into Hono Hono, the traditional Maori healing, I had no clue about this. I was literally just in my masculine, just functioning, trying to explain everything logically, realistically, where the feminine is the receptivity, the believing, the surrendering, the creative, and is weaving both of them together. Most of the
Mm.
people still are. We are living in a very masculine system as well, so we're trained to function within that masculinity. But once we bring that feminine in, we come into that present state. We come into looking internally, but looking as well as what is happening outside of us in nature. What is it trying to communicate with me? It's the It's a beautiful process. It's like sometimes, obviously, we're still needing to get things done, so we are more in our masculine. But then it's also time to step a step back and come back into the feminine, and taking a pause in the day, taking a breath in the day, in that moment in time to just really anchor back into that body, bring that physical connection. Like in traditional Maori healing, we believe everything is interconnected, physically, mentally, and spiritually. All of these three elements need to be in harmony to be able to live in balance and in harmony as well. So, as well as masculine and feminine, they flow with each other when we embrace both of them as well.
I agree. I love how you are mentioning that our body or mind or spirit, I believe I use the right words, uh, uh, because it's kind of confusing actually, because what is our mind? Is it our brain or is it something else? Our body's pretty obvious, and then our spirit, like, it can be a little bit of confusion around that, but essentially we have three elements to ourselves, and when they are in alignment, that's when we can fully express the best version of ourselves. And I truly believe that. I believe that we have to have a physical health that allow us to move within this world, within the walls and the Newtonian world that we live, to be able to experience life from a fulfilling place in that place. But some people don't have that. Some people have certain disabilities, but still they can experience a fulfilling life through alignment with their minds and their spirits. Can you go into a little bit of detail of how that shows up when it comes down to trauma on the body? So, as far as I know, our bodies have memory. As far as I know, when it comes down to trauma, it is something that usually happens early on in our life, and we accumulate that. So, as you're mentioning how you have seen that being released, I would love to hear that process and how that plays into aligning our minds or bodies and our spirit. And correct me if I'm saying the three of them incorrectly, but I believe that those are the ones. Maybe you have different names for them.
The other ones. Um, One thing that I like to throw in there beforehand in regards of the masculine and feminine again too is that we can always ask ourselves, are we making decisions from the mind, or are we making decisions from the heart? Because our heart is pretty much always guiding us. Our heart is our center point where we bring that masculine and that feminine energy together. If we're only making decisions from the mind, then we're just kind of in that logical place.
Mm, okay. Yeah, that absolutely. So I like to believe that some of the guidance that I'm doing by making people's perception open up about, wow, yeah, the seasons changed me, is that I'm in a way aligning their logical thinking with their feelings. So I think that all of them have a connection. And when it comes down to experiencing something painful in any given moment, usually it's because there is a memory that is very emotional, that has been stored in our brains, in our bodies, and the environment is triggering that. I like to see it that way. I like to see that the environment triggers an emotionally charged memory, which then triggers a neurochemical. Most of the time, when it's painful, it's usually cortisol, is stress. It activates our survival mechanisms. And what I like to think is that if that is the logic step, then when we feel that stress, when we feel that pain, it's an opportunity for healing. It's not the time to just respond and run and hide or be aggressive and just respond out of an instinct. Because that's what it becomes. It becomes our default mode or programming or instinct. A lot of times it's not even within us. I like to admit that a lot of those instincts are programmed in the human body for us to survive. But what I like to explore is how to give choice back, how to give the choice back to the person that now identifies that pain, that trauma, that fear as an opportunity to change, to transform, to grow, to release, to become more of the version of themselves that it is in alignment to who they are and not just an instinct, perhaps.
Yeah. It so most the we can talk about the little T's and the big T's. So a lot of these trauma aspects happen when we're between 0 and 7, because that's when we're most open to our environment. We're like sponges, we're taking everything in. We also have different needs that may have not been met because our parents may have been busy, or there's certain circumstances that may have happened. And that obviously all shapes on what we believe, how we feel about ourselves, and also what we think. And this is getting stored in the body already. So, like through traditional Maori healing, we have different timelines of our body. We have one timeline on our thighs, which is kind of like our emotional storage point, where we can really pinpoint at what age certain emotional triggers happen for us. And there's an another timeline on the back, which is the memory timeline. So we can really specifically tune into what age was there a certain situation that a lot of times, or most likely, will correspond with the timeline on the thigh as well. And then there's another timeline on the head, which is the memory timeline. So we can really pinpoint in a very specific way what happened when. And a lot of times we're not actually too aware. We're knowing what is going on in our body, if it may be physical pain, if it may be injuries, if it may be tensions, or we might be feeling that we're very emotionally up and down, but we're not aware where that really goes back to. And it's really figuring out what is the root cause of this and how is this holding me back to really step into my full potential.
Mhm. Well, I have I'm very curious about knowing if when it comes down to those timelines, the season have an effect. And the reason why is because I truly believe that what we have learned as the Western way of identifying this is pretty much through atomic habits and the work that was done before that, which is a cue in the environment triggers a craving. I like to think of those cravings as a neurochemical release. And then it basically creates a response. Like we're going to respond to that craving and then we will get a reward. But what I like to say is that those are seasonal. I like to say, well, no, there is a seasonal cue, there is a seasonal craving, there is a seasonal response, and then there is a seasonal reward. Now, I'm just framing this because I'm really curious to know if some of those trauma, well, not some, there are going to be some, they're going to be none. Um, but what is the key play here when it comes down to a seasonal environment? So I believe that a lot of times we're experiencing an environment that as it changes into a season, into an energy, into a sensory experience that is unique to that season. And it can be the same location, it can be the same backyard, it can be the same landscape, it can be seen through the same window, but as it shifts, now that seasonal cue is different. And when it comes down to traumas, I really believe that it brings to light certain experiences that we live during that seasonal moment at whatever age we experience, and that it gets triggered, and now a response is based on that. So I am really curious to know if you have experienced that, if you have knowledge about that perspective. So I truly believe that there is wisdom there, but I haven't really helped somebody heal through a trauma. I just do it based on observation in my life, in other people's life, and I would love to hear from you if you have seen that as well.
Well, you can pretty much see it in winter time wherever you go. Like, when it's the darker seasons, when there's not much daylight around, people don't, in general, carry the same happiness than when it's in summertime. It's like, yes, winter is for going inward, but it's always a choice on how you feel as well. we always have the choice in every single moment how we feel, because we can either get stuck in, let's say, sadness or anger or whatever may be. Like there's a situation where people have frustrated us, so it might be like that we get stuck on this one moment. But we can decide if we let this moment affect us or if we move through it. So, like in winter again, a lot of people can be very grumpy. Like I have a dog, I walk my dog 3 times a day. It doesn't matter if it's raining, if it's sunshine, whatsoever. In winter, you barely get people to say hey or have like a quick communication with them. In summertime, it's more likely because there's more openness. There's more that they're embracing more of the outside, where yeah, I personally don't quite understand it because I feel like it's the embrace of everything. It's the embrace of winter. It's the embrace, like it's shadow and light. Shadow and light need to coexist within each other so we can learn about us, to connect deeper to us. Um, but it's always mind blowing on how, yeah, some people just get very carried away with what is going on kind of on the outside instead of focusing it back on the inside and making that conscious choice of like, how do I feel? How do I want to feel? How can I change this? And embracing all of the seasons, embracing the rain, embracing the snow, embracing the wind, embracing the cold. Like even when the wind hushes past, like how does the wind feel on my skin? What does it take away from me while it's blowing past me? So there's that synchronicity again, like nature's always communicating with us. It's always speaking to us and wanting us to be more connected to ourselves too, because we have been very disconnected from nature as well. What does nature need? What do we need? It's all interconnected in that field.
What I like to add to that is that it seems to me, which has always been my belief, and it's very cemented in my perception by now, is that even though we are not consciously aligning with the outdoors, with the outside world, what we perceive as the outside, with the environment, we're actually always in alignment with it, but it's at an unconscious level.
Yeah,
So whatever happens on the outside, the less aware we are, perhaps the even more we are going to respond to it. But the difference is that we do it in an unconscious way, in a way that is not premeditated. Like, I don't think that people consciously choose to be grumpy in the winter. Like, I think that it just happens because they don't have the tools or are even aware of how to reflect that energy in a positive manner. A
absolutely.
lot of that a lot of that comes down to, in today's society, we tend to associate the darkness, the inward reflection, the slower pace that the winter brings as something negative, because we are always cheering the go, 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 do more, do better, be consistent, instead of also acknowledging and saying, hey, it is good to actually go through those times of the year to recover, to realign, to actually get to know ourselves at a deeper level. And number one, okay, without awareness, it happens automatically. Number two, without the tools of how to do it, it actually makes people fearful, because there's a lot of people that are aware that they struggle with seasonal affective disorder, with the winter blues, with SAD, and oftentimes you see them actually being very afraid before the winter even arrives or the fall even arrives. Like they're like, oh, it is coming, it is coming. So that means that they are aware. And as soon as they feel it, they just don't have the tools to go inwards and face whatever trauma, whatever demon, whatever is inside of them that is triggering that pain, that sorrow, which is so natural to feel during this time of the year. So I believe that it is in our best interest to have choice decisions. So I'm going to use an example because from our previous conversation, you mentioned how you still go outside in the winter. you still go for hikes. Obviously you just mentioned you still hug your dog 3 times a day. You know the benefit and you still choose to do it. You don't let that just carry you away and put you into a corner. So can you tell me, where does that come from? Is that because there was a shift in your life that you realized that, or it has been programming from where you were little, or it has been actually when you met this new culture that embraced the outdoors, the connection? Like, when did that change? When did you become so open to, hey, I'm still gonna connect to the outdoors no matter what the season is? Because I think that is something that a lot of the Western cultures are missing right now.
It is also because we're so trained to disconnect. We're so trained to take our phone or to, with having phones around, it's so easy to just numb things out, to actually to not feel, to actually not even ask, oh, what is going on. With the going out aspect, it actually really started with working on the farm, because farm life doesn't stop. Although it's raining, snowing, or whatever time of the season it is, if it's winter or summer, animals still need to be fed, animals still need to be looked after. So that's when some days obviously I still absolutely didn't enjoy, but I've pushed through it. And the feeling afterwards of seeing the results, seeing what you've done, what you've achieved throughout the day, although it was not necessarily a very pleasant day, made me more aware of how can I actually embrace this? How can I embrace each individual moment? And then through the work I tapped into, it is embracing all of life. It is embracing, for me, going out into nature doesn't matter what weather it is always like the returning back to me. It is moving my body. It is getting out of the mind and connecting to my spirit. Because every animal, every tree, they all have spirits. They can all communicate with us in certain ways too. So it's like that, really bringing myself back to me. It doesn't matter what is happening outside. And whatever is going on within nature is as well happening in us internally, and it's bringing that bigger picture together of like how nature works is actually how we work in the most natural way, without the conditioning, without the traumas and all the aspects. Like, it is moving through its stages. Flowers bloom in springtime and then full on in summer, and then they retreat again too. So it's very similar to us as well. But we have not been, it has not been a way of how the world is going about it. It is more in that masculine of go, 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 go. Don't really look at yourself, what is happening internally, what is happening with your body. Just move through it. But nature does that too in different ways. It washes things away when it gets too heavy. The wind blows through to just bring in fresh life. Um, yeah, and if we start to really feel into that, and just even again, masculine, feminine, having a quiet moment and just sitting outside watching what is happening around us within nature, when people enjoy their morning coffee, having that morning coffee with intention and just looking around, seeing what is happening, and what is that reflecting back to me in that moment in time right now. There's
I
all
love that.
little
I
messages in between in that.
I definitely I I I experienced that, and I absolutely love that. I will say that I wasn't trained to stop and observe. I think that is the biggest reflection that most everybody watching can agree on, is that we're not trained, we're not educated to do that. I'm thankful enough that at one point in my life I started doing that, and now it has become a practice. I find beauty on anything that is happening. Why? Because it's just a reflection of what's happening inside. Like, where is really the disconnection? Like, or where one stops and one finishes. Once we start living that way, it becomes such a more meaningful life. Now, one of the things that happen biochemically when we are connected to the outdoors, and there is layers of these, like if we have no shoes and we are into the grass, if we are touching a tree while we have no shoes and are connected to nature, or whether we're going for a walk and we have our shoes on and we're observing, but perhaps we're getting sunlight on our skin, or sometimes we're not. Sometimes it's the wind, those feelings. So there's different layers and different ways that we absorb that. But to simplify it, when we're connecting to nature, we're actually regulating our nervous system. Like we are achieving serotonin, where we are, dopamine is being released. Oh, I want to go here. I want to do this. Cortisol is being harmonized to a certain degree. Like if we were way too high, if we went on a fight or flight mode and we go through a whack, that will help us regulate our nervous system. And what I would like to admit is that as the seasons change, that level of connection that happens subconsciously changes. Now, at a conscious level, you can choose once you are aware and once you have the techniques of how to ground and how to connect to nature, you can choose that. But we have to agree that sometimes in the wintertime, we might not be able to go outdoors and walk barefoot on the grass because it's just going to be full of snow or it's going to be a little too cold. I mean, we can do it, but is it convenient? No. So what I like to hear from you is some practices that can be extremely convenient, that can be done indoors or outdoors. So you can give a few examples of how to ground ourselves. Because again, from a seasonal perspective, those tools are more necessary during certain times of the year than others. And learning that is a skill that is not passed around too often. So I want to take this opportunity for you to let us know what are some of those practices that can help us ground independently of the season.
There's so many, and there is every practice works different for people as well. Like even taking that moment of presence, putting one hand on our heart and taking one deep breath, conscious breath in through the nose and out through the mouth can actually ground us instantly in our body. That obviously might take a little bit of practice over time. Because we have to train our nervous system again too, because we have been so trained that to live with a dysregulated nervous system with the overstimulation that is going on around us. So even just that one step of stopping for a moment, connecting to the heart space, one deep conscious breath in, like our breath is our guidance system. The first thing that changes when we are stressed out is our breath. As soon as our breath is changing, our nervous system changes as well. There's other techniques as well. One that I really like is you can tap your left thumb, your the left fingernail of the thumb for a little while, and then after a while you squeeze it. It is instantly resetting your nervous system. And that is something that
Mm,
we can do when we are in stressful situations, where we're in conversation with people that we don't want to have. We can put our hands behind our back and just do it there and then. So to really come back to ourselves, be grounded, and not get into the fight or flight. Because obviously there's always triggering aspects within our society through the overstimulation that we're surrounded by that can get us instantly out of the body, into the head, and then we might react instead of respond. So there's these little
mm,
techniques, like there's different points on our ears as well that can be very good for grounding. Our
mm,
ear is actually a reflection of our spine, just upside down. And there is a spot
mm,
at the tip of the top of the ear that we can always squeeze in a sense. So it's like taking both of the hands on the tip of the top of the ear, breathing in, holding the breath while squeezing it, and then releasing it all back out. And it's a very good tool as well to drop out of the head when we're like in looping, overthinking consistently, like, oh, I have to do this, here, there. Brings us back into that present moment. In that present moment, our breath is getting restored, is getting back into that calm, and then as well our nervous system follows as well.
I love that. I practiced the one on the ear. I learned that one. The breath, you told me last time we met, you can put your hand on your tummy or on your back. I think it's on your tummy here, and then present,
One
be
hand,
present of your
one
breathing.
hand on the belly. Yeah.
Yeah, be present of your breathing. And I'm sharing that while you were doing that, I did my own. So I like breathing and being conscious of my breathing, but I do believe that it's also being aware of which parts of our brain are being active at the time. So we hold a lot of pressure when we are thinking from our prefrontal cortex, which is the analytical mind. And when we're thinking about, I have to do this, do this, do this, do this, usually that's like the part of the brain that is the most active. And I believe to a certain degree that it takes more energy. I think it's actually scientifically proved you burn more calories when you're thinking a lot and when you're doing, very difficult tasks. And that's because you're using that part of your brain the majority of the time. So I like to be present when I do those one, two, three breaths, or it can just be one. As soon as I do one, and I'm like, let go of the pressure on my forehead and let myself sink into, it can be called the primal brain, like the posterior brain, the middle of the brain. I don't know exactly which one I'm feeling, but I just move my thinking from the front to the back and I feel that release as I'm aware of my breathing. So there are so many different ways. And when we go outdoors, again, that is like free medicine. You also mentioned hugging your dog, but what I find interesting is that I do that with my kids, by the way. That being aware is actually what achieves that. Like you can perhaps have your dog around, he jumps on you, and you're like, get out of here, and you don't really get any benefit. But if you're actually aware and you say, come here, let me give you a hug, like I do with my kids, like I'm aware of the benefit of that positive social dynamic that is happening. And what we do is that we produce oxytocin. I mean, we perhaps produce prolactin when we're caring for our kids, when we are doing something aware, we're feeding them. I know it's a chore, but I'm caring for them. So being aware of those things are extremely beneficial and it's scientifically proven. It releases a neurochemical in our brain that makes us feel a certain way. But again, if we're not aware, that doesn't really happen at a level that we can appreciate and ground ourselves. So I find that social dynamics play a big role within the cycles of nature. Because as you mentioned, in the winter, it's very difficult to see people sometimes. Not that, it depends on our routines, but in a universal language, we see less people perhaps, or when we see them. Like if I go for a walk in the winter, usually our bodies tension and like crush a little bit and or eyes kind of go down. It's kind of cold and there is something about it that most body languages react that way. There's like a little bit of tension. So perhaps you walk next to somebody and it's not like you are open and you say, hi, how are you? And you stop for a second and there's no long conversation, but there's a little bit of an exchange, right? Um, so I find that social dynamics follow this seasonal pattern and it's extremely interesting. It's part of my method is understanding that, like help people understand those dynamic changes that happen throughout the year so they can be more aware. Because this is something that you actually have a very unique perspective that I want to bring to the attention is the holiday season. So you grew up in Germany and the holiday season was a certain way on a certain environment. But then as you're now in New Zealand, you are in the southern hemisphere and the holiday season is during the summer. So perhaps you can reflect so that the audience can really see, wow, like these things happen to me in an automatic way that I never realized, but because of contrast and because of your experience and what you have learned, now they can use that and realize, wow, I am a social being and I have to become a little more aware of that flow throughout the year.
Yeah, the holiday season is very interesting. I mean, the holiday season doesn't really feel like the holiday season for me anymore. because
Mhm.
I have
Yeah.
used, for me, it was that being used to having, when I was little, there was still snow around when there was Christmas and New Year's and all those things. Now it's like full on, full blown summer, which I love, but it doesn't have the same feelings anymore connected to it either. It's not the, um, I still find myself taking myself away from the hustle and bustle, more going inward and going to places where there's not so many people, where there's not so much hectic chaos. Even staying away from the beaches because most Kiwis will be at the beaches at that time. So I'll be more going into the forest where I can actually, like, be with myself, be with nature. Um, that is still a big part for me through the winter season that kind of happened there. But it's again, we can always embrace every season, every moment, and bring that with us. Like the contrast of having the holiday season in winter and now having it in summer, I'll combine them. I'll bring what I've been used to into what is happening for me now to make it, to bring that safety for myself in as well. Because I don't want to get caught up in that hustle bustle. I don't. This is just not me. um, but yeah, it took me a long time to actually really be okay with it, to have it in summer too. Because then sometimes, obviously, when it's winter and it's in the middle of July, then it's kind of like, there would be something happening now. Like your body's just trained to kind of experience that. So it's bringing the
Yeah.
comfort back into your body of like, hey, it is okay. Like, how can I embrace that in a different way? How can I bring that in for myself if I want to experience that? So,
I love that. I love that. Sorry that I cut you off. You said your body's entrained. Like, like our body absorbs those patterns. Like our body's trained to expect. And perhaps that has been the biggest gift. What I believe this is my purpose because I grew up in tropics and that's all I experienced. And then when I moved to a four season location, I experienced suffering. Like I didn't know what was happening. I wasn't aware that the environment plays a big role in who I am. And I suffered for a while. Like I didn't know what to do. And I find this so fascinating that you are like a case study that so many people experience, but you are a positive case study because there is people that don't know how to deal with that. And I put myself there 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where you feel that there's this entrainment in our bodies to those patterns that we experience, to those memories. And when we can connect them and we don't receive that, your body asks, like, what's going on? I'm supposed to expect this right now, and I'm not getting it. Is there something wrong? So over time, what I have experienced, and some when that is negative, I have realized that there's just a cortisol reaction. There is stress being released in my brain to let me know something is odd, something is not normal. Pay attention. You want to survive. That's my way to let you know. Now, as we were talking earlier, pain, resistance is the signal for us to go inward and grow, to see the synchronicity of what's happening on the outside, see what's happening on the inside, and get insight. Get insights. Wow, like if you stay there for a while, if you just like don't let go of that, if you just don't just ignore it, you actually get insight because that is telling you something. And I have found that happening to me, which is interesting in the fall time. Like as we're transitioning and we're getting the first big storm of the year, like, the one that is really cold, like your body intuitively knows that this is the northern wind hitting us this time of the year. This is the sound that the leaves falling are making. This is the smells. This is there's all these sensory signals, cues that our bodies train to recognize as risk. Like what will happen to us thousands of years ago if you weren't prepared for a winter? I mean, you will die. So our body oftentimes uses that release of stress to alert us. Hey, you better get your stuff together because there is change happening. So the way that I now approach that is by going inward and asking questions. Okay, what am I feeling? Okay, what is changing on the environment? Okay, what can I do to calm my body? A lot of times it's actual actions, like you're mentioning. You go to the forest. The forest might be more representative of Germany than New Zealand. We have those patterns, and when we hear them and we seek them, we let that stress go away. We actually connect with positive feelings, higher vibrations, harmony, and we become the best version of ourselves. Compare that to being on stress, on survival mode. So it's interesting in the fall because I go and gather a little bit of wood, even though I have a heat at home. I go around the house and make sure all the landscaping is putting away, all the snow gear is ready to go if I need it. Like we can take this to so many layers. Okay, I have my winter clothes ready. The idea is that we realize that we have nothing to fear, that we are connected to our environment and it's a positive signal, so we can let go of the negative and we can grow.
It's also
So
the
that
embracing of change as well, being okay with change, because the only constant thing that is in our life is change. Everything's
I
always
agree
changing.
100%. I
Internally,
agree. Yeah,
externally, nature, it is just as part of it, and it's being okay with change.
I agree. I have a question. So I love horses. I grew up riding horses. I broke my wrist. I fall. I had a few accidents. I love horses, and I do believe when I'm near a horse, I can calm. I feel there is a change. Like the horse, I believe is a big animal with lots of energy, with a big heart. There's like synchronicity that we perceive at an energetic level when we are near a horse. Now, I'm open to say that, our ancestors ride a lot of horses. So like I was way more connected to a horse than I am now. And it might be part of that. I don't know. But I like to believe that in this life, there is energy. The horse has a tremendous amount of energy and it's like one of the most kind, harmonious. Like it's like a very kind animal. I love horses. So when I go on your Instagram and I see that you use horses for therapy, for healing, I'm like, that makes sense. Now, for a lot of people, that might be like, what's going on there? So I want you to explain me, like, I'm very curious about how that works. Like, how come that works? Like, I believe without knowing the details that it works, but can you explain me how it works?
It's not just with horses, it's with every animal, really. Like, our animals, our pets, carry a lot of our stress, our worries, our emotions, things that we're not quite ready to acknowledge or don't have the time to deal with or don't want to deal with. Um, it's they're here in this world, same as little children. They're always in the present moment. They're always vulnerable. They're always deeply, deeply, deeply connected, and they're actually here to support us to bring that heart connection back, because they are always in that heart center. So when working with horses or with dogs or with cats, it's releasing a lot of that stagnant energy from the human. It's actually transmuting the energies, transmuting the messages, what is going on within the human, because that's what they're pretty much doing. They're helping us to have more of a balanced life, to be more connected to nature, to be more connected to the environment, to be more connected to the present moment and the here right now. And they're actually here to support us and to guide us. But a lot of times we don't let them either. We don't let them fully in. So it's like bringing the connection back between human and animal as well. allowing them to support us, but as well as us acknowledging what they're doing for us. So they're our big companions, helpers, supporters, as well as they're our caretakers. And it's like my dog, I just have to look into his eyes and I know what he's communicating with me. He's bringing that awareness back to me because we've had different healing sessions together, where obviously I do quite a lot of healing sessions on him, but then also other people had healing sessions on him and transmuted those messages back to me. And that brought in more understanding of what is actually happening within this relationship. Horses as well, it's just fascinating how they communicate and what way they communicate. And if we allow ourselves to actually let them communicate with us in their own way, like sometimes we might feel like, oh, they're annoying, they're a bit nudgy, they're a bit needy. But what is actually the message behind it? What is it that what is it that we need in that moment right now? They're actually giving us that love to ease our day, to bring us back into the present, to bring us back to our breath, to just bring that awareness back within us. So they're actually massive, massive guides in that sense. And our animals, with these specific horses that you're referring to on my Instagram, is, for example, that's been different sessions where we did a treatment in the field with the horses around. And the horses hold space for that whole treatment to happen, for the energy to release. But at the same time, there were aspects where one of the horses started nibbling on the client's foot, on the big toe, which is again a message. What does the big toe like interpret on? Like what does it mean? In Hono Hono we work with a body map, so every body part tells a story, and it's bringing all these different puzzle pieces together. One other horse was very needy, consistently pushing into that space. That is because the client, in that sense, was overstepping boundaries from other people as well, and consistently like overstepping in that sense. So that was what the horse was reflecting back. But then also our animals, horses in that this specific case again too, they carry our pain. So like when we have something going on in our leg, you can actually feel the energy in that leg from the horse as well. If the horse or a dog or an animal is getting injured, what is that reflecting back to us? Like, is there something within us that we have not acknowledged, seen, or worked on? So, when my dog, for example, was 4 months old, he broke his leg while working on the farm. Well, it had nothing to do with him. It was actually all what was going on inside of me. All the blockages and the little things that I was over pushing. It was on his masculine side as well. So like he's been reflecting me of where I have not been looking after myself, and then that happened for me to go inward and like support him, but also work on what was going on in my life situation in that moment in time.
Hmm. I often find that as also relates to our broader environment. I know that once you have a dog, a living being, I think that feeling is easier to get if you're aware. But I also feel like as a tree is shedding its leaves and as it's growing, oh, there it is. And as all that happening, yeah. Yeah, he's welcome to be in the podcast. And I find that we can also, if we have that perception, we can also get a similar result, a similar benefit from paying attention to the environment, to the seasonal environment that we're living. Now, I want to say that you're doing that in present, but for everybody in the audience that might be interested, you can also do that remotely. I
Yeah.
get an invitation to do my session. I believe there was a technological issue that didn't allow me to book it, but I look forward to doing it. And you can also do them online. So my question is always, how can it be done online? And how do you get that energy online? Like, I think this gets really interesting because it gets into quantum fields and how time and space are all, in this Newtonian world. But when you're in the spirit, you're actually in a different place. like the same rules don't apply. So it's just an opportunity for you to let our audience know how can you do this work remotely and how they can access through it. We're gonna make the link in the description down below. If you guys wanna go ahead and book a session, if you guys have any questions, the social media links, you can go and see the kind of work that Jay is doing. And the question is like, how can you do it remotely? Like how that works.
Yeah, so energy is everywhere. Energy is within us, energy is around us. When we connect with that energy with intention, then we feel things. Like it's even just like I always bring that example in when you walk into the supermarket, you're very calm, and then suddenly you come out of the supermarket and you're suddenly all over the show. Means you've taken on energies that were present in the supermarket, the hecticness, the everything that was going on. So what happens remotely is I tune in with an opening prayer with a karakia. And as soon as I tune in and connect my energy field to the energy field of the person or that animal, I can feel in my body what is going on in their body. So my body is giving me that guidance, and my intuition obviously is always present in that sense as well. Um, that brings the puzzle pieces then together again through it might be through sensations that I feel in my body. It might be emotions that I feel in my body. It might be suddenly feeling pain. It's tuning into the chakra system as well. We have the seven energy fields going up and down. That's what I normally start with. And then there's different pains or sensations, different. My body might start twitching, or there might be suddenly my voice starts disappearing. There's a lot of different ways on how we can connect with that, but it is so profound what actually can happen in a distance healing session, because whatever is happening within that person, so the person or the animal literally just takes an hour to just relax and be, which is quite hard for some people as well to not get into the mind, but to just being present. A lot of people fall asleep as well, which means that the deeper healing is happening too. But through creating that sacred container, that sacred space through the karakia, that opening prayer, I can feel everything in my body, what is going on in their body, and then I can start on releasing the energy. If it's stuck energy, if it's emotion, if it's stress, if it's thoughts, if it's nervous system regulation, whatever it might be. And I write everything down. So I have like two body maps drawn on a piece of paper, front, back, feminine, masculine, on each side of that body map, and then work through the different pieces. And normally it's like a guiding system, like our body is that guiding system. So I might start at the head, but then suddenly I might feel something on my elbow. That elbow is connected to something else again, which can be that emotional contact. You just yawned now, which means that you're releasing energy, old energy, stuck energy that may have been in your system. Um, it's such a beautiful process. It is so fascinating. And after that, I communicate with the people what I've been working on, and that brings awareness in on what was happening, is happening in their body. And then they have those different light bulb moments popping in of like, oh yeah, actually I've been dealing with that. Or I felt like I had a very beautiful session with my mum, because obviously I've been growing up very Christian as well. So it took her a little while, but it also took me a little while to actually kind of open that, because being so conditioned and also the fear of judgment at the start held me back too from actually offering it to her. But eventually we got to that point, and she was like, oh, I had suddenly a pain in my wrist, and then I started crying, and then I saw those different light flashes, but I think I just imagined them. And I just said to her, hey, Mum, no, you didn't imagine them. That was happening because I saw them too. And it's just a beautiful way to support people, connecting them back to the body, to their internal compass, guidance on move forward with clarity and balance.
Mm. I see it as removing some of the blockage that doesn't allow us to connect to who we are and the direction that the purpose that God has given us. I do believe most of my audience are going to be Christians, so if you can just expand a little bit on, is there anything contradictory of an energy healing session with Christianity? I mean, I'm just super curious about that, and we don't have to go into that much detail, but since you are such a great example, you're mentioning of your programming, how you grew up, your belief system, and now what you're doing, it lets me to believe, and what I like to believe about it, is that there's no contradiction whatsoever. The words might be used differently. Some things might just don't be approached on one or the other. But I truly believe that there is um, harmony with anything that is spiritually related. And the words that we put to it, the meaning that we put to it, can perhaps sometimes be that separation. But I believe that if God created it, is the one and only God, is the one and only God that created everything within the universe, the seasons, the external environment, nature, the animals, the humans. And I believe that it is in alignment, but perhaps you can just put the last little detail there before we transition into our exit because I think that is extremely interesting.
I personally believe it doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it God, you can call it Eo, how it's called in the Maori culture, you can call it the universe, creator, whatever each individual person resonates with it. We all have these parts of God within ourselves too, because we are the creator of our life. So it doesn't matter what you call it in that sense. It just needs to be fitting for you. What for me didn't resonate with Christianity and how I've been growing up was like having to go to church to pray, because we can always pray. Everything happens with intention. As long as we're doing things with intention, we're connected to something higher, we're connected to ourselves. And that is that living in alignment as well.
Mm, yeah, I agree. Depending on the church you go to, it might be called Christian, but they might practice it a little different. And I agree. We are the body of Christ. We are the sons of God. Like God lives within us, and we can experience God every second, every moment. We choose to become aware of that, no matter where we are. So I think that that brings the chapter to a full circle. I want to make you think about what would be the last words you want to give the audience with. But before that, I want to say thank you so much. It has always been very interesting to me how to learn from other cultures. And I have never been in New Zealand. So I have never been exposed to that culture. And seeing your transformation from the Western, from Germany, that is something that I, in a way, know a little bit more about to New Zealand. It's like, it gives me hope. It gives me hope because I believe that some of these cultures have been put down a little bit through colonization, through humanity, through our history. And it is in my heart to believe that actually there is so much wisdom there that has been removed or basically has been disconnected. Some of it doesn't really, it's not that it doesn't exist, but it's not accessible. And I love the fact that you're able to bridge the gap because I believe that there is so much wisdom. We use different words, we use different methods, but at the end of the day, we both can agree that aligning with nature, aligning the inside and the outside, becoming connected to who we truly are, it is the most powerful thing we can do as a human being to experience ourselves and the God within us, which is the God that created everything in the universe. So thank you so much for this perspective. I have learned so much in this episode, and I am just curious to know what would be the last thing you let the audience know before we go.
It is bringing acceptance and openness to everything that we experience. Life is beautiful in absolutely every way. Magic can be found wherever we go. But it's allowing ourselves to let that magic be found as well. wherever we go, within ourselves, within the situations that we find ourselves in. It is, we always have a choice, and it's making the conscious decision of creating the most magical life that we can imagine. And even when we have our hard days, trying to think about what can bring us that joy back, what can bring us back that connection to our body, to our heart. If it's just a laugh, if it's doing something that we've never done before, like stepping out of the comfort zone is such a beautiful thing, although it feels so scary, but the more we do it, the easier it gets. So just being, enjoying life to the fullest in absolutely every way, and being curious about ourselves, about nature, about all the teachings, the wisdom that is around us, within us, and bringing that back together with a masculine feminine harmony and balance.
The masculine, the feminine, the winter, the summer, every season of our life has its challenges, its opportunities, and it's matter of our perception and our acceptance, surrendering to those environmental conditions and being open and being aware of the beauty within them that allow us to experience life in the most meaningful manner every season of the year, not just 6 months of the year, not just 9 months of the year, but even during those seasons that have brought us challenges in the past, we can change that. We can learn from our previous experiences. We can use guidance, and we can change that reality for that season. If that season is now for you, if that season is 6 months from now, keep that in mind. There are tools, there is people waiting to support you. And I believe that is what the seasonal movement is all about. So thank you so much, Jay, for bringing that up to life. It is with great thankfulness that I say goodbye for this episode. For everybody else watching, thank you so much for listening or watching. And as always, keep it seasonal.